Hey everyone, so today I want to create a starting point for all my full stack apps, and then I want to have it hosted on Heroku just as a place to start so I can take my full stack apps further. So right now I'm going to open up Git Bash and I am going to run touch server.js, and now I'm going to run npm init-y. It's ls to see what we have. So while I'm here, I'm just going to make a directory called routes, cd into routes, ls, and now let's go ahead and create API routes.js. Great. So inside the base folder in here, let's run npm install express space concurrently. And let's make sure to spell this properly. So express concurrently. So if I hit enter, that should install two dependencies, the express and concurrently. All right, ls, just to see what we have. So now that we have a node modules, we might as well just go ahead and get started. I'm going to say git init, and then I'm going to create a .gitignore file. And now let's all open this up with VScode. So the first thing I want to do is add node modules. First thing I'm going to do is add node modules to my gitignore list. Save that, so that should get rid of this. Great, and I'm also going to add package-lock.json. Package-lock. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into server.js, because I need to set up express by saying const express equals require express, and then I'm going to say const app equals express, and then there we go. And let's go ahead and create port, which is going to equal process.env.port, which is set up for Heroku later on. And if that's available, go ahead and use process.env.port. Otherwise, use port 5000. Oops. Let's add an extra 0 in here. Great. And now we need to say if process.env.node_env is production, then what we need to do is set our client build file app.use express.static in here, and we need to use our build folder, which we haven't really created the React part of things yet, but we're just getting it set up. So let's say client/build. Later I'm going to create a React app, and it's going to be called client, and there's going to be a build folder that we need Heroku to serve, but that'll come later. So as app, now we need to set up for URL encoding. So I'm going to say app.use, I'm going to use express.url encoded, and we need to set inside an object here extended to true. Okay, and same kind of method here. We need to say app.used because we need to set up for JSON. So let's say express.json with an N. All right, we haven't created our route, so let's go ahead and just set up a server by saying app.listen, throw our port in there, and when we do connect, let's console log listening at http / local host, and then we are going to use string interpolation to add port. So to make this work, make sure that you've got these as backticks and not single quotes, because then you can add in a variable, this port here, inside this the money sign and then the squigglies. There you go. So that should go ahead and get our port set up. Let's make sure we're in the right folder. I'm going to say node server.js and run this, and there we go. Looks like we have a port listening right now, 5000. So I would recommend making sure that you have nodemon installed, by just say say npm install -g nodemon, and you'll get a really handy tool, and I'll show you what it does. I can say nodemon server.js, nodemon server, there we go. Cool, so now I get hot reloading every time I save. So that's nice. Let's go ahead and create let's get into side routes and into API routes, file that we already created for ourselves, and we'll create an endpoint. So I'm going to say const express equals require express const router equals express dot router. And now let's create the endpoint after a GET request. So I'm going to say router.get, and let's say example, just as the endpoint example. I am then going to set up for my request and results. And when this comes in, when something hits this endpoint on my back end, I am going to send a string that just says success. And then let's just say message from backend. Cool. All right, so it looks like it's running. Let's go ahead and hit this link here. All right, and I didn't expect anything to happen on the route here, so let's instead add example to see that it's still not going to hit, and that's because I'm not bringing it into my server yet. So let's do that. I'm going to say const API routes equals require, and I need to put the path in to that route. And now I need to say app.use API routes. And let's make sure that we are exporting this by saying module.exports equals router. So let's see what we get. That is our message from our backend. So this is awesome. Now we need to create a client folder using React by saying, let's make sure we're on the right file here. Great. Now we can say npx create React app client. npx create, awesome. So let's hit enter, and it might take a little bit. I'll make sure to speed this up in the video. You might want to pause. Okay, so it looked like it created our React app, and just to make sure, let's cd into client ls to see where we're at, and we can say npm start, and what should happen is it shows our React app in the browser. Cool. So since I don't want to have to navigate inside the client folder every time, let's go back one, get into our package.json file in our server, and we need to add a couple more scripts in here. So first one I'm going to create is one called client, and when we run client, it's going to say npm start -- prefix client. So first we go into the client folder, and then we run npm start. Nodemon was one of the dependencies that we installed. Sorry, not Nodemon, but concurrently. This one is going to be useful for us, so we can run our server and our client at the same time. I am going to call this script dev, and I'm going to say concurrently, and I'm going to give myself some space because concurrently is a little odd. So all right. And so its format is it's going to need the backslash here, backslash there, backslash, because these are going to be two separate commands. And so VScode kind of fights you a little bit. I like to give myself lots of space. And so the first command I need to throw in here is nodemon server.js, which is the command that we use to run our server. And then I need it to also run npm run client, which is going to start up my client. So now we can kind of trim out the space Make it a little bit cleaner. Okay, let's save this and make sure that our scripts run. I'm going to say npm run client. Well, we already tried that one, so we don't need that. But now let's say npm run dev. And I'm going to hit enter. Uh-oh, see this typo in here? That might be a problem. So weirdly it wasn't, but let's get rid of that right here. Cool. So I just got rid of the S. Let's save this. And it looks like our backend is running and our client is as well. Let's make for sure by going to here, localhost 5000 and let's hit example. Cool. So we have our server and our backend running, and we also have our client running. What we need is a way for our front end to make a request to our backend. That's what makes it a full stack application. So let's get rid of some of these extra files in here, because we're pretty much done. There's one more script we need to add, but we'll do that later when we're putting this on Heroku. I'm going to get into my client, because then I need to get into package.json. And to make it, here, let's close down our server because we don't need this anymore. Let's give ourselves some more space. I need to add something in here called a proxy, which is going to hit HTTP localhost 5000. And let's open this up because we need to CD into our client, and I need to install Axios to make the request to our backend. So inside the client, make sure you're in the folder that says source in here. You have two package.json files, one for the server for your backend and one for your client. So if you're installing a client-side dependency, you need to make sure you're in your client app. So again, just because it's like Tourette's for me, I need to make sure I'm in the right directory, ls. Awesome. Now I'm just going to say npm install Axios. While that's installing, I'm going to get into my source file in here, get into app.js, because there's actually a lot of this boilerplate code that I don't need. H1, I'm just going to say hello world. Oh, that looks like it's good, so let's just close this down, give us some more space. I'm not using the logo, so let's get rid of that. This logo in here, I gotta delete it. Okay, and now let's bring in Axios. So I'm gonna say import Axios from Axios. And let's also make sure it's in the right package.json file. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, dependencies, Axios, awesome. So we are looking good. So I want to make a request to my backend as soon as this component loads. I'm going to use effect to do that. Okay, and what I'm going to do is say Axios.get, and let's make sure we know what route we're hitting back here. So it's example. So let's say example, and we don't need to add the localhost 5000 because we added that as our proxy. So after we make the get request to example, then assuming we get our response back, let's console log, oops, oh gosh, console log the response. Cool. And since we are using a dot then, let's just catch any errors if they come up. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure, so see how we're in our client folder. Let's go back one. Awesome. Now let's run npm run dev, which should run our backend and our front end. Looks like it did our backend, and now it's going into our client. Now it's running our client side. Cool. So we have the hello world here. Let's inspect it so we can see the console. See how we have this object in here? Let's go inside here and we can see that we have a message from our backend, success. And that is what makes a full stack app a full stack app. Great. So in the next video, let's just talk about how we can get this on Heroku.